If someone had whispered to me, at the age of 50, surrounded by the mundane reality of grocery bags resting on my lap, my hair still faintly perfumed with the scent of dinner preparations, that I would find myself in a parked car with my husband's esteemed business associate, my heart thrumming a frantic rhythm, louder than the insistent drumming of rain against the windshield, I would have dismissed such a notion with a dismissive, hearty laugh. I was, after all, the embodiment of stability, the steadfast wife, the woman whose moral compass always pointed unerringly towards what was right. Yet, on that particular evening, when I simply accepted an offer of a ride home, a seemingly innocuous conversation irrevocably altered every preconceived notion I held about myself, about the sanctity of my marriage, and about the man I had hitherto regarded as merely a professional acquaintance of my husband. Before we delve into the heart of this narrative, I have a small request for you, dear listener. Please take a moment to share, in the comments below, the city from which you are tuning in. Are you in the vibrant metropolis of New York, the bustling streets of Chicago, the sun-drenched avenues of Miami? Or perhaps you reside in a tranquil, unassuming town, nestled somewhere quiet and forgotten? I genuinely wish to envision your surroundings as you absorb this tale, for this story, you see, is profoundly personal. And perhaps in some inexplicable way, it might just resonate with you on a deeply intimate level as well. My name is Eleanor. I am 50 years old, and for nearly 3 decades, I have been inextricably bound in the intricate tapestry of marriage. Until that pivotal night, I harbored the steadfast belief that the narrative of my life had already been meticulously penned, its chapters neatly arranged and thoroughly predictable. It wasn't a bad life, certainly not tragic, nor was it a fantastical fairy tale. It was merely steady, utterly, reliably predictable. My husband Robert is a commendable man, though at times he drifts into a realm of absent-mindedness, perpetually tethered to his phone, forever consumed by the incessant demands of his work. He is by no means a malevolent figure. Our son, now a grown man, has long since embarked on his own journey, carving out his own existence beyond the confines of our home. Most days, my world revolved around the rhythmic ticking of the kitchen clock, the gentle hum of the television providing a faint background symphony, and the inevitable late arrival of Robert, his clothing subtly scented with the sterile aroma of office air and the lingering fragrance of countless restaurant dinners. Arthur entered our lives approximately 3 years prior. Initially, he was merely the business partner. That was the succinct introduction Robert had offered. "Eleanor, this is Arthur, my new partner at the firm." They would exchange firm handshakes, share hearty laughs, and engage in animated discussions about figures and burgeoning opportunities, while I, the ever-dutiful wife, would serve coffee, attempting to project an air of genuine interest. Arthur, a few years my junior, perhaps in his mid-40s, possessed a commanding height and an almost preternatural calm, exuding that rare, quiet energy that some men possess, the kind that makes no overt effort to impress, yet somehow you unfailingly take notice. He invariably addressed me with impeccable politeness, with an understated respect that was both disarming and refreshing. There was no hint of flirtation, no overt charm offensive, merely warm, perceptive eyes, a gentle, understanding smile, and a genuine inquiry into my well-being, coupled with an astonishing capacity for truly listening to my response. It began with a series of small, seemingly insignificant moments. He would linger for a few extra minutes after their meetings concluded, offering to assist me in carrying plates back to the kitchen. "How is your back, Eleanor? Robert mentioned you've been experiencing some discomfort." I would, of course, dismiss it with a light laugh, a practiced jest. "Oh, my back and I are ancient companions, Arthur. We engage in a daily ritual of mutual complaint every morning." Yet he would listen, truly listen, as if my minor aches and trivial complaints held a genuine significance, as if they actually mattered. Do you comprehend the profound rarity of such an encounter, especially after years of being subtly, perhaps unintentionally, taken for granted? Robert was never cruel. He was simply elsewhere. His mind, an incessant whirl of activity, was perpetually fixed on the next lucrative deal, the next demanding client, the next formidable challenge. With Arthur, however, When he conversed with me, it felt as though there was nothing else within the confines of the room, as if the entire universe had shrunk to encompass only the two of us. Still, I emphatically attest, I never once entertained the notion that anything untoward would transpire. I didn't even permit myself to acknowledge that a dormant part of me subtly stirred, a quiet awakening, whenever he was in my vicinity. The night that irrevocably altered everything was ushered in by tempestuous weather. It was one of those evenings when the sky, heavy and bruised with impending rain, assumed a somber leaden gray long before the sun had begun its descent, and the wind, a relentless tormentor, ceaselessly threatened to invert any unsuspecting umbrella. Robert had called earlier, his voice laced with feigned regret. "Eleanor, my dearest, I am truly sorry. I won't make it home for supper tonight. Arthur and I are compelled to meet a client across town. Please, don't wait up for me." I vividly recall gazing at the simmering pot of aromatic stew on the stove, the dinner table already meticulously set. 2 plates, 2 glasses, a silent tableau of anticipated intimacy. I instinctively wiped my hands on a pristine dish towel, pausing for a fleeting second to absorb that familiar subtle sting of disappointment. "Work again," I murmured, the words laced with a weary resignation. Despite the abrupt change in plans, I resolved to venture out to the small neighborhood supermarket. At least it will afford me a brief respite from the confines of the house, I rationalized. I donned my coat, retrieved my handbag, and stepped out onto our quiet block, the wind gently caressing my cheeks as a fine mist of rain began to descend. Inside the supermarket, a strange juxtaposition of brightness and banality enveloped me. People meandered through the aisles with their carts. A child's insistent plea for candy punctuated the air, and an elderly woman meticulously compared the prices of canned soup. I moved slowly, unhurried, my shopping list minimal. A few pieces of fruit, a fresh loaf of bread, some herbal tea. My mind, however, drifted incessantly. I pondered the profound quietude that had lately pervaded our home, the unsettling silence that had prompted me to leave the television on merely as a source of background noise. I reflected on how Robert and I shared a bed, a physical space, but had, for far too long, ceased to truly share our hearts. By the time I emerged from the store, my grocery bag clutched firmly in hand, the sky had unleashed its fury. Rain poured down, hard, sharp, and sudden, as if it had patiently awaited my egress. Inevitably, I had forgotten my umbrella. The expansive parking lot shimmered with countless puddles, and I could already discern the insidious seep of water through the soles of my shoes. It was then that I heard my name, a clear, resonant call through the deluge. "Eleanor!" I turned, my gaze drawn to a familiar vehicle pulling up closer. The window glided down, revealing him. Arthur, his hand resting casually on the steering wheel, raindrops catching the ambient light on the car's slick roof. "What on earth are you doing out here in this downpour?" he inquired, his voice warm, imbued with that same quiet concern that consistently made me feel genuinely seen, truly acknowledged. I pressed the grocery bag firmly against my chest, in futile attempt to shield its contents from the unrelenting rain. "Forgetting I'm not 20 anymore," I joked, a wry smile touching my lips. "Just doing some last-minute shopping, trying not to drown." He chuckled softly, a low, melodic sound. "Get in. I'll give you a ride home." Ordinarily, I might have hesitated. A married woman, alone in a car with her husband's business partner, amidst a raging storm. It possesses the distinct flavor of a storyline one encounters in those sensational online articles, the kind you click on with a knowing smirk, thinking, that would never, ever happen to me. But in that precise moment, I was undeniably cold, my shoes squelched with water, and frankly, I trusted him implicitly. "Are you certain?" I inquired, my voice tinged with polite concern. "I truly don't wish to inconvenience you." "You are no bother, Eleanor," he asserted, his eyes meeting mine with that unwavering, sincere gaze. "Come on, you'll catch your death of cold." And so, I opened the passenger door and slid into the welcoming embrace of the car's interior. The warmth enveloped me like a comforting blanket. The soft hum of the engine, the faint, clean scent of his cologne, something subtle and masculine, mingled with the damp aroma of my rain-soaked clothing. He leaned over slightly, with an almost imperceptible movement, to relieve me of the grocery bag, placing it gently on the back seat. That small gesture, that brief proximity, made me acutely aware of the intimate confines of the space between us. I could discern the faint, delicate lines etched at the corners of his eyes, the subtle flecks of distinguished gray interspersing his dark hair. He began to drive, the windshield wipers maintaining a rhythmic, hypnotic cadence across the glass, transforming the external world into a blurred tapestry of streaking water and refracted light. For a full minute, neither of us uttered a sound. It wasn't an awkward silence, precisely, rather, it felt like a pregnant pause, a quiet prelude to something profoundly significant. "How have you truly been, Eleanor?" he asked abruptly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Really, not the polite answer, the genuine one." I laughed softly, a surprised exhalation. "You always do that." "Do what?" he prompted, his gaze briefly meeting mine in the rearview mirror. "Ask in a way that makes me feel an almost compulsive need to tell the unvarnished truth. Perhaps I simply genuinely care about the answer," he offered, his voice low. That simple statement caused a subtle tightening in my chest, a small flutter in my heart. I lowered my gaze to my hands, resting in my lap. The slender gold band of my wedding ring caught the faint, distorted reflection of the streetlights as we passed. "I've been okay," I replied, carefully choosing my words. "You know how it is at this stage of life. Some days feel interminably long, some feel profoundly empty, and some are simply fine." He glanced over just for a second, but it was long enough for me to register the profound concern etched in his eyes. "That doesn't sound like someone who is truly happy, Eleanor." "I didn't say I was unhappy," I retorted swiftly, almost defensively, the words tumbling out before I could censor them. "No," he conceded quietly, his voice a gentle counterpoint to my defensiveness. "But you didn't say you were happy either." The car filled with the insistent drumming of the rain, as if the storm itself was attempting to muffle the raw, unadorned truth that hung, heavy and palpable, between us. "Robert keeps you incredibly busy," I offered, attempting a diversion, a swift change of subject. "He's been working you uncommonly hard lately." Arthur let out a long breath, a sound somewhere between a sigh of weariness and a soft, knowing chuckle. "He keeps himself busy. I merely run alongside him and endeavor not to stumble. Business is good, though." "It is," I agreed. "But good business," he countered, his voice laced with a subtle melancholy, "doesn't always equate to a good life." I turned to face him fully now, genuinely surprised by the depth of his statement. "You sound weary, Arthur." "I am," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Weary of the incessant late nights, weary of the perpetual pretense that the next lucrative deal will miraculously infuse us all with a renewed sense of vitality." That particular phrase, "make us feel alive," resonated deeply within me, a poignant echo. There was something in his tone, a quiet, almost radical honesty that I was utterly unaccustomed to hearing from the men in my orbit. Robert's lexicon was perpetually saturated with terms like profits, expansion, and opportunities. Arthur, however, was articulating something entirely different, something far more existential. "Do you ever feel as though you've simply vanished somewhere along the way?" I blurted out, the question escaping my lips before I could arrest its flight. He didn't respond immediately. We passed beneath a solitary street lamp, and in its fleeting glow I witnessed him glance at me, his gaze lingering, studying my face with an unnerving intensity. "Every single day," he confessed softly. "Why do you suppose I always inquire about your well-being, Eleanor? You are one of the precious few individuals I know who still seems to remember that I am, in essence, human." His words struck me in a place I hadn't even consciously registered as empty, a deep, hollow chasm within my soul. I swallowed, my throat suddenly constricted, tight with unshed emotion. "Well," I murmured quietly, my voice barely audible, "I don't always feel particularly human myself anymore. Some days I feel like an inanimate piece of furniture in my own home. Always present, undeniably useful, yet never truly noticed, never truly seen." Arthur's hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the steering wheel, a subtle clenching. "I notice you." The very atmosphere within the car shifted then, not in a dramatic, cinematic flourish, but with a profound subtlety, akin to the moment a window is opened and the ambient temperature alters by merely a few degrees, yet you perceive its undeniable presence on your skin. A flash of lightning illuminated the distant horizon, followed almost immediately by the low, resonant rumble of thunder. The external world felt suddenly remote, surreal, and within the enclosed sanctuary of the car, it felt as though there existed only the two of us. and the unutterable truths we had never dared to voice aloud before. We approached the turn that would lead directly to my street, yet Arthur, inexplicably, did not take it. Instead, he decelerated, pulling the car over near a small, unassuming park, the kind of idyllic spot where parents once brought their children on sun-drenched afternoons. Now, under the unrelenting onslaught of the rain, it appeared utterly deserted, almost forgotten. "Why have you stopped?" I inquired, even though an insistent murmur in my heart already recognized the undeniable significance of this moment, its profound departure from the ordinary. He shifted the car into park, but allowed the engine to continue its soft, rhythmic hum. The windshield wipers maintained their steady, almost hypnotic motion. He turned slightly in his seat, his body orienting more fully towards mine. "Because if I drop you off right now," he stated quietly, his voice a low, resonant murmur, "you will enter your house, meticulously put away the groceries, and painstakingly pretend that nothing is amiss, and I, in turn, will return to my own home and relentlessly pretend that I do not think about you far more than I should." My breath hitched, catching in my throat. "Arthur, I know," he interjected swiftly, raising a hand slightly, as if to calm the suddenly charged air between us. "I am acutely aware that you are married. I know he is my esteemed business partner. I know this situation is fraught with complications and potential messiness, and perhaps these words should remain unspoken. But you implored me to be honest. And if I do not articulate this truth now, in this car, on this rain-soaked night, I genuinely believe I never will." I felt my pulse throb distinctly in my fingertips. My cheeks flushed with an internal warmth, my chest felt impossibly tight. A primal part of me yearned to yank open the door and flee, to sprint home, to escape this overwhelming honesty. Yet another part of me, the part that had harbored a quiet loneliness for years, remained perfectly, immovably still. "What exactly are you saying?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. He lowered his gaze for a fleeting second, as if marshalling his courage, then met my eyes squarely, directly. "I am saying that I see you, Eleanor. The subtle way your smile falters when you are truly exhausted. The patient way you listen when others speak, even when they demonstrably do not deserve your attentiveness. The unwavering steadfastness with which you have stood by Robert all these years, even when he has been far too engrossed to truly notice the remarkable woman standing beside him. I notice. And it has become progressively more arduous for me to pretend that I do not feel something profoundly significant for you." Silence descended again, broken only by the incessant drumming of the rain. No one, absolutely no one, had spoken to me with such profound depth and perception in a very, very long time. Not about my domestic duties, not about my physical appearance, but about me, my inherent presence, the very essence of my heart. "I truly don't know what to say," I murmured, my voice a fragile thread. "You don't have to say anything," he replied, his voice a soothing balm. "I simply needed you to know, because if I am being brutally honest, this ride, it was never solely about the rain. I glimpsed you out there, and I craved a few minutes alone with you, to experience what it feels like when the world isn't constantly pulling you away from me." My throat burned with a sudden intensity. I realized with a start that I had been holding my breath. I released it slowly, deliberately. "This isn't fair," I stated finally, my voice tinged with a quiet despair. "To you, to me, to Robert." "I know," he acknowledged softly, his voice devoid of judgment. "But is it truly fair to persist in pretending that you are not profoundly lonely, that you are not permitted to desire more than merely being convenient?" His words struck a raw, exposed nerve deep within me. I thought of the countless nights I had sat at the dining table alone, a meticulously prepared plate of food slowly cooling before me. The conversations with Robert that, over time, had devolved into quick, transactional updates about schedules and bills, devoid of genuine feelings and shared dreams. The insidious way I had learned to silence my deeper needs, to bury them, because they simply did not fit into our perpetually overscheduled calendar. I turned my face towards the window, watching the individual raindrops race each other down the glass, each droplet leaving a fleeting trail. In that blurred, distorted reflection, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. "What do you genuinely want from me, Arthur?" I asked, my voice slow, imbued with a newfound gravity. He took a measured breath, and I could almost perceive him meticulously selecting his words, ensuring they were imbued with respect. "I don't wish to possess you," he declared, his voice firm yet gentle. "I don't wish to shatter your life. I don't wish to drag you into something you do not truly, wholeheartedly desire. I desire one honest moment. A singular moment where we cease deceiving ourselves about the profound feelings we harbor. Whatever that ultimately signifies for you, even if its sole conclusion is our mutual admission and our subsequent decision to walk away." Unexpectedly, tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. Not precisely because of him, but because of the sudden, devastating realization that, somewhere along the labyrinthine path of my life, I had ceased to anticipate anyone caring about the profound depths of my heart with such intensity, such reverence. "I am not a young woman anymore," I stated, my voice thick with emotion. "This is not some fleeting teenage fantasy." "I know," he replied, his voice unwavering. "That is precisely why it holds such immense significance. You are a grown woman, Eleanor. You possess a profound understanding of what you truly feel. That, I suppose, is what renders this both unthinkable and, paradoxically, so incredibly real." I turned back to him, and for a long suspended moment, we simply gazed at each other. Two adults, seated in the intimate confines of a car, with decades of choices behind us, and only a few inches of charged space separating us. In that extraordinary moment, the unthinkable was not some reckless, impulsive action. It was the breathtaking possibility of, for once, choosing my own heart, of daring to admit that I yearned to be seen, to be desired, to be profoundly valued. Not merely as a wife, not as a hostess, not as a background presence, but as a complex, vibrant woman. My hand moved almost instinctively of its own volition, resting lightly on the center console that separated us. His hand was already there, a silent invitation. Our fingers brushed, a fleeting touch, just skin against skin, warm and tentative. He made no sudden move to grasp my hand. He didn't pull me closer with a forceful demand. He simply turned his palm upward, offering an unspoken permission for my fingers to slip into his, if that was truly what I desired. And I did. I laced my fingers with his, my heart thumping so fiercely I could feel its insistent beat in my ears. That simple, profound contact felt more intimate, more exquisitely personal than anything I had experienced in a very, very long time. Not because it was inherently forbidden, but because it was completely, painfully honest. We sat like that, my hand nestled in his, the car serving as our small, fragile world. The rain continued its ceaseless descent. Other vehicles drove past, their occupants oblivious to the silent, momentous crossing of a line that was occurring within this one car. A line that, once traversed, could never truly be uncrossed. Not with our bodies, perhaps, but with our irrevocably intertwined hearts. "I don't know where this leads," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Neither do I," Arthur confessed. "But I promise you this, Eleanor. Whatever path unfolds, I will never force you, never rush you, never disrespect you. You deserve gentleness, Grace. You deserve the unequivocal freedom of choice, even if that choice ultimately leads you to walk away from this and never look back." My eyes stung again, a fresh surge of tears. It was everything I had been subconsciously craving: respect, tenderness, the profound freedom to decide my own fate. We remained there for a few more minutes, our hands intertwined, breathing the same charged, heavy air, listening to the relentless symphony of the storm outside. I felt as though I stood at the precipice of a vast cliff. The ground beneath me still solid, reassuring, yet the irresistible pull of the unknown called to me from the depths below. Finally I drew a deep, fortifying breath, squeezing his hand once before gently, almost reluctantly, pulling mine away. "Take me home, Arthur," I said softly, a quiet plea. "Please." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement. No argument, no discernible pressure. He shifted the car back into drive and smoothly pulled out onto the rain-slicked road. The silence that now enveloped us was different, fuller, heavier than before, yet devoid of any cruelty. We had opened something that could not simply be closed again, and we both understood this undeniable truth. As we approached my street, my house materialized into view. The familiar brick walls, the same unassuming front door, the very porch light I had switched on before venturing out. It appeared precisely as it always had, utterly unchanged in its external facade. Yet, I knew with a chilling certainty that when I stepped inside, nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever feel quite the same again. He stopped directly in front of my house, leaving the car idling, its engine a soft, rhythmic pulse. For a moment we simply sat there, suspended in time, neither of us quite ready to shatter the fragile, momentous spell that bound us. "Thank you for the ride," I murmured, my hand resting on the door handle, my voice a quiet whisper. "Thank you for listening," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "And for being honest, even if that honesty carries a certain sting." I opened the car door and stepped out, the cool, damp air immediately caressing my face. He too exited the vehicle, circling around to retrieve the grocery bag from the back seat and handing it to me. Our fingers brushed once more, a fleeting contact, lasting only a second. There was no dramatic farewell, no stolen kiss, no tearful embrace. Just a look, deep, searching, imbued with the weight of everything we hadn't yet dared to do, but which now undeniably existed between us. "Good night, Eleanor," he said, his voice soft, yet resonating with an unspoken depth. "Good night, Arthur." I walked slowly up the winding path to my front door, my heart still beating a rapid tattoo against my ribs, my mind relentlessly replaying every single word exchanged in that car. I knew, with an unshakable certainty, as I inserted the key into the lock, that this was merely the genesis. The unthinkable hadn't fully manifested, not yet, but it was undeniably coming, inexorably, and I was no longer certain if I truly wished to flee from it, or if, perhaps, I was finally ready to face it head-on. When I finally closed the door behind me that night, I harbored a faint expectation that the profound feeling would gradually dissipate, that the lingering warmth of his hand in mine, the raw honesty in his voice, the resonant way he had uttered my name as if it held an intrinsic, unique meaning, would simply fade. I imagined that perhaps sleep, like the persistent rain washing the streets outside, would cleanse it all away, leaving me unburdened. But it didn't. All through the long, restless night, Arthur remained a persistent presence in the intricate labyrinth of my mind. Not in a reckless, impulsive way, but as a quiet, steady pull, an undeniable force that I found utterly impossible to ignore. I compulsively replayed that pivotal moment, the precise instant when he had declared that he noticed me. Not my culinary skills, not my meticulous household routines, not my dutiful responsibilities, but me, my very essence. The following morning, the world on its surface had seemingly reverted to its ordinary state. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting familiar patterns on the bedroom floor. My coffee machine hummed its customary morning tune. Robert, with a half-eaten piece of toast clutched in his hand, rushed out the door, his mind already miles away. Everything appeared exactly as it had always been, immutable and predictable. Everything, that is, except for me. Later that afternoon, I ventured outside to inhale a breath of fresh air, and there he was, Arthur, standing by his car across the street, a silent sentinel, as if he had been locked in an internal debate, weighing the merits of approaching my door. He straightened almost imperceptibly when he caught sight of me, his expression gentle, yet tinged with an understandable uncertainty. "I didn't wish to disturb you," he began, his voice low, "but I felt compelled to ensure you were quite all right after last night." "I'm fine," I replied, though the betraying tremor in my heartbeat belied my assertion. "Just thinking." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of shared introspection. "Me too." For a long suspended moment, we simply stood there, a few feet apart, separated by the width of the street, while oblivious neighbors passed by, utterly unaware of the quiet, undeniable gravity that shimmered between us. I knew, intellectually, that I should have retreated back inside my house. I should have decisively severed whatever fragile, dangerous thing was beginning to blossom between us. But something deep within me yearned for clarity. Not for chaos, not for a fleeting romance, but for the profound, unvarnished truth. "Arthur," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper, yet imbued with a newfound resolve, We cannot pretend that nothing transpired, but neither can we permit it to irrevocably damage the lives of those around us. I know, he affirmed, his voice gentle. I am not here to take anything from you, Eleanor. I merely wish to be someone you can truly confide in, someone who genuinely sees you. Nothing more unless, of course, you consciously choose it. His remarkable restraint, his unwavering respect, that, I realized, was the most perilous aspect of all. It cultivated a deeper, more profound trust within me, drawing me inexorably closer to him. I stepped closer, just enough so that he could discern the raw honesty in my voice, the sincerity of my words. I genuinely don't know what I'm choosing yet. You don't have to, he replied, his gaze unwavering, compassionate. Not today. The wind picked up slightly, carrying with it the faint, lingering scent of the afternoon rain. For one exquisite, suspended moment, we simply stood there, two adults, irrevocably entangled in an emotion neither of us had actively sought, neither of us had explicitly asked for. Then, I uttered the only thing I was truly certain of. I simply yearned for peace, and for someone who profoundly understands me. He nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement of my deepest longing. Eleanor, you already possess that. I am here, even if my role is merely that of a trusted friend, a confidant who truly sees you. It wasn't a fervent promise of an impossible future. It wasn't an illicit affair, hot and reckless. It wasn't even a grand confession of undying love. It was something far quieter, far more profound, a connection that neither of us could adequately define, yet both of us felt with an undeniable intensity. He stepped back, gracefully affording me the necessary space. Take your time, he said, his voice a gentle reassurance. Whatever you ultimately decide, I will respect it implicitly. And then he simply walked away. No theatrical drama, no lingering touch, just the profound, lingering truth that hung between us, soft and unspoken, like the last, resonant note of a deeply moving song that remains etched in your chest long after the music has ceased. I watched him go, my heart steady now, yet brimming with a complex mix of emotions. I didn't know what the dawn of tomorrow would bring. I only knew that for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I no longer felt utterly invisible. The story, my dear friends, is far from over, and I'm eager to explore where this path leads, one honest step at a time.